What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Facility Management Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Javier. And so I just realized I ended my last podcast and I was going to tell a story at the end of that. And I'm like, you know what? I forgot to tell that. Well, the podcast was 30 minutes long and I thought it was going to be a lot shorter. So that means I'm going to make this one about that story. So I'm basically, it's not just to tell the story, but I'm trying to paint like an understanding for everyone to kind of get this. And so I'm going to, let me pull up my Facebook post. I posted about this, which is hysterical. I wouldn't say it's hysterical, but it brought up a good point. All right, where am I? Okay. So this is what's going on. So this is not a knock on anyone, but so I heard recently that, how do I want to say this? So okay, I'm just gonna go into it. So I posted here that, on my Facebook page, and this is what I wrote. I'm gonna just read it out for you guys. All right. So just so we're clear, marketing isn't this free flowing of ideas where you make changes because of one person. Marketing is not this utopia of Zen and feel goods and water flowing through a river. Marketing isn't like Boulder, Colorado or Madison, Wisconsin, the mecca of awesome hippie vibes. And I can say that because I went to Boulder, okay? Marketing is strategic. Marketing is thoughtful. Marketing is planned. Marketing influences revenue. Marketing is Rome when it was being built. Planned and thought through, purposeful. So next time you create a marketing strategy and people say, can we make marketing be more free-flowing? Tell the idiot that free-flowing marketing can't be measured, duplicated, created into a framework. So don't let others that have no marketing knowledge influence your marketing strategy. Stay strong. So that's what I posted. And it kind of hit some people. And it was good. It wasn't, bad or anything like that. And you might, think like, well, that's kind of, it's pretty direct, Javier. What influenced that? I'm not going to go into detail what influenced it, but what I'm going to say is that I don't want, whenever you're creating marketing strategy and people are like, well, we don't want to be married to like, what the strategy is. We don't want it to be set in stone. We want it to be able to like, to shift. Here is the issue with that, okay? Is that if you create a marketing strategy and you always change it, then you can't measure the success or failure of it. And if you're like, well, it's just not working, okay, according to what? According to what data is it showing that it's not working? But you can't measure in 2 weeks typically on a marketing strategy. You can't measure in 4 weeks. Sometimes it takes a quarter or two to get like an understanding and get your feet wet in the foundation of these marketing strategies that are put in there. So having a strategy that is free flowing and always changing and evolving makes no fucking sense. So marketing shouldn't be free flowing. Marketing should be well thought out and planned. And so what's going on here is that there are people out there that they're like, well, I don't like that this is it's like it's concrete. And my response to that is that it has to be. Your opinion does not matter. And if you're like, do you talk to your CEO like this? No, I definitely don't. When I create the marketing strategy, we sit down and we discuss it and I lay it all out. I say, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to improve. This is how I want to do this. And I lay the strategies and here are the levers and this is the strategies and these are the tactics. And then I say, this is what I'm expecting. If we do this, we should be able to grow by this. And if we do this, it should be able to do this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get what I'm saying? It's exactly how marketing strategies are created that I put together. And then my CEO then looks at it and he reviews it and he's like, I'm on board with all of this. I would change this and this. Excellent. And then I'd be like, all right, what are the guardrails? What is it that you don't want me to do? Then we agree upon the guardrails that we can't go outside of these things. And that's it. And then we execute the strategy. Now here's the issue. He blessed it, right? Now that he blessed it, we move forward with it. We do not start adding or removing from the strategy. Now, there's a caveat to this. So when I did this for Q3, Chris then, contacts me and he's like, hey, Javier, he's like, I loved everything that you did for the strategy, but he's like, this quarter needs to be very important and very, very focused on revenue because we're now putting a lot of attention to capital raising. I was like, okay, I get that. That makes sense. So I need you to dub down that marketing strategy you put together that I love and say more no's and just be focused on like 1, 2, maybe 3 things. I'm like, you know what? I'm on board with that. Why am I on board with that? Because it gives us a very minute, like very laser focused approach. That I'm on board. It wasn't, Javier, we want you to also add this and also change this and also understand that if this happens, this has to change and this and this and that and that. You see what I'm saying? And that doesn't make something successful. So like almost 6 months ago when we started doing our blogging strategy, and Chris was like, well, what does the success look like for this? And I'm like, well, it's kind of tough to measure, but the easiest way to kind of measure success of blogging is going to be impressions. He's like, well, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, I'm like, there's a stat here from Google Search Console, and essentially the more impressions you're getting, the more eyeballs you're potentially going to be getting to your site, which is going to drive more traffic, which is going to start helping like demand and organic leads come in. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, so that would be a way of determining if like this blogging strategy is working. I'm like, yeah, but I go, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And so he goes, okay. Because he wants to kind of like, put numbers on a whole bunch of stuff. And I get that. He's a numbers person. I totally respect that. But where I'm coming from in all of this is that things are concrete, and the only way to measure success is to simply do it for a quarter, and that's what you're doing. And so basically when you put a marketing strategy together, you need to execute it through hell or high water. Okay? You just need to execute it through hell or high water, no matter what. And if people are like, well, I don't agree with this, that's not your function. You agreeing with this means nothing to me, because at the end of the day, guess who has to report on this? Me, the person that made the strategy. And guess who has to own the fuck ups on this? Me, the person that created the strategy. And guess who gets to own the successes of it? Not me, the team that executed the strategy. Okay? Not me, but the team that executed the strategy. So everyone involved in marketing. Do you see what I'm saying? So this whole free-flowing marketing where it should just kind of change and stuff like that. Like, marketers aren't people that sit in a room eating Doritos, drinking Bublés, and playing ping pong. That's not what we are. Okay? Like, it's thought out. So anyways, one of my friends, he responds to this and he's like, I think it's all about it. He goes, I think it's all that you mentioned. I also think it's super impactful when it's able to catch the moment. I've personally done in 2 separate occasions, and both proved to be huge stepping stones to a bigger ROI, way bigger than if I just stuck to my strategy. One was a planned deviation. The other was the last 2 years forced. So COVID basically. But marketing is also the ever evolving, not just messaging, but medium it's used in. Sometimes an audible does good. And so I agree with that, but pivots are different. Okay? It's not free flowing. It's like it's football. Most football teams, they essentially start and they script 15 to 20 plays, and they're running the 15 to 20 plays based on the package that they know that the defense is going to be running. They're like, hey, this team is going to be running a 3-4 with a cover 2 on top, and this is how they do this, and they use their corners doing this. So we're going to script our first 15 plays to set the foundation of what we expect to see through the game. And if this is going to happen, then we're going to be doing this, this, and this. These are the strategies. This is the approach. Guess what doesn't change? The scripted 15 plays. You still fucking run the plays. All right, unless your name is Peyton Manning, you're running the plays. Okay? And then, at halftime, then like the coach evaluates, like, hey, this has been working really well. We're going to build off of this. Like, hey, this is not doing good. We need to change this. And sometimes you just scrap everything and you just got to go back to the drawing board but you don't scrap everything and do things that you've never done before. You scrap everything and say, hey, this approach wasn't working, but this is what we're seeing. We're seeing something, we're seeing a trend here. Let's start doing this. That's different. That's not free flowing. That's like, hey, we made a mistake. We need to change this. Let's pivot. And I'm okay with that. And so anyways, I replied to him. I'm like, I totally agree with you. But the difference is that you had a strategy initially, then pivoted due to circumstances. You controlled it or not. And when you shifted, it was thoughtful. It wasn't just from the hip. And I'm one to always do the ready, fire, aim approach. But by the same token, there needs to be a strategy. I love blowing shit up, but I also need data to support my direction. So example for me is like the company I'm currently working for, which is Wrapmate. I discovered that $2 and $3 leads from Google were not only costing us more per customer, but we weren't really closing as many as we thought we were. But Facebook was about 2 times the cost per lead, but the ROAS, the return on ad spend, was through the roof. We were previously investing 70% of our on Google and 30% on Facebook, and I didn't go full tilt on this immediately, but I worked the transition over 2 months, and now it's in the reverse. Our CPL's more, but our sales team has higher quality leads, meaningful conversations, and a pipeline that they can work better. That wasn't a free-flowing approach. And I feel like people look at marketers as a bunch of people in a think tank eating Doritos, drinking bubbles, playing ping pong, and just bouncing ideas around. So yeah, it starts with an idea, but you and I both know that that idea is garbage if it can't be executed upon. That's why I replied with it. He's like totally on board with all that. And so this is why marketing should not be free-flowing. Marketing should be strategic. Marketing should be like how Rome was built. Okay? There are elements that Rome was built over several years and decades, and then there's elements that Rome was built like, quickly. Go fight some people. And those are important. You need all of that. They both have its role. Okay? They both have its purpose. And so that's kind of what I wanted. That was the story that I wanted to share. That kind of made me, post this, and it's good. Like, someone else commented on this, and I'll read it really fast. And he took it to heart. He goes, all right. I need to change that for me. And I said, Nishant, if I can't create a framework for a marketing strategy, then I either need to sit down and do it, or I place it on the back burner. I try to then find someone that has a system they created that allows me to do that, or I rethink it. What is successful should be able to be replicated and implemented by other people without much of a hitch. Otherwise, it's just more manual work. I'm not saying manual is bad. I'm saying being efficient is better. And so this is why like free flowing doesn't really work. Like, shifting and all this other stuff, that's not marketing. Marketing is strategic and has like, hey, this is what we do. Like, you should be able to get it to where it's like scientific, where it's very rhythmic, where it's very algorithmic. Okay, it's very, X's and O's, zeros and ones. And then there are times when it's just an art and it's just flowing. Okay? But I don't think marketing is more art than it is strategy and execution. Like, there is an art to marketing, but it's not all of it. Okay, so like I do think there is a formulaic approach to marketing. I really do. I really believe that there's a formulaic approach to marketing that is successful. And why do I think that? Because the countless amount of books that I've read about marketing all have some sort of formulaic approach or a formula. That's it. And so if you can figure out the formulaic approach to marketing, you will have a more successful strategy and a better career in this field. So next time someone kind of tells you something along the lines of like, marketing should be free-flowing and adjusting and pivoting, that's like telling the salesperson that they should be free-flowing and adjusting and pivoting. And you're like, well, that's how all sales calls are. No. Sales calls are formulaic as well too. And I can say this as well too. Like, when I was running my martial arts studio, 9 times out of 10, I knew exactly what questions I was going to ask, and it was all scripted in my head, and I knew it. I knew the order, and it was 5 or less minutes of conversation to get them in. And then whenever they got in for the appointment, once we scheduled them, they came in, the intro sessions was very formulaic. It was like this, then this, then this, then this. And it was all set up a certain way. And then at the end, we would sit down, we'd go over costs, and then people would close like that. Formulaic. That's sales. Okay? Marketing can do that as well too. Because if it's not formulaic, then you can't scale it. If it's not formulaic, you can't scale it. That's basically what it is. Okay? So think about that. Other than that, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, do me a favor and please give us a 5-star review on Spotify as well as on Apple Podcasts. I'd greatly appreciate that. The next thing is if you could also take the time to share this podcast with somebody else, maybe send them a DM or a text message. That'd be awesome, because I'm trying to help grow this industry and educate more people about how to better improve their marketing. And then the last thing is that connect with me on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people that are listening to this podcast is because I sent an outreach to you, and so I thank you for that. We are approaching, I want to say 80 plus episodes. Like if you're listening to this podcast, we've probably broken 80 episodes already, I think. And, we're probably on the verge of hitting over 2,000 downloads. And to me, that seems like a lot. Like to others, they're like, it's not that big. I'm not trying to grow the biggest podcast, guys. I'm trying to grow the best podcast for marketing in the facility and property management space. That's pretty much it. Like that is my goal, is to grow the best podcast on how to market correctly, all right, in the facility and property management space. That's it. And if I can do that, and it's the best podcast with the best content, and I'm over delivering every single time, then I know for a fact that people are going to value this and then be like, you need to talk to that dude Javier over there, because he has his shit together. He knows how this stuff works. He knows how to build this. He knows how to do that. That's the dude to talk to. And that's what I'm trying to create. And I think I'm getting there. I think I'm starting to build a pretty strong following, because I've got people that message me on a regular basis. They're excited about some of these podcast episodes. They're engaged with some of the content that I put out there. But, with that said, I'm still trying to grow this. So if you can share this with other colleagues that are in the facility and property management space, that would be awesome. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, hope everybody has a wonderful day. Talk to everybody later.